At 6 months pregnant, my mother-in-law pushed me down the stairs because I chose my daughter's name. "Change it," she yelled. That's when I cut her off forever. I refused to give my child my mother-in-law's name, so she pushed me down the stairs. My mother-in-law Karen approached me about baby names while I was 6 months pregnant and standing at the top of her stairs. "Will you now reveal the name you have chosen for my granddaughter? Or must I continue to speculate?" She had been making small remarks like this all night, and I continued to sidestep her since I knew she wouldn't appreciate my response. After my grandmother, who reared me throughout my parents' split, my spouse Ryan and I had previously chosen Sophia. There was no way out of informing her now. "We're going to call her Sophia." As if the term physically repulsed her, she repeated it back to me. "Not Karen, but Sophia. For me, the name is everything." Ryan was in my arms for 8 months. She interrupted me. "After his father left, I reared him alone. I sacrificed all for that boy. And you're not even able to give me this one item. Karen, it's not personal. It's the name of my granny." There was nothing humorous about Karen's laughter. "Your grandmother. The woman who made your husband is more important than some woman I've never known." I did not intend that. I stumbled out. "What do you mean then? Because it seems like you're saying that I'm unimportant. You don't value the sacrifices of the past 30 years. The volume of her voice was increasing, and I erred by adding, "Let's talk about this later when you've calmed down." She moved closer, and I retreated, only to find the stairs behind me. "Calm down? You're standing in my house telling me my name isn't good enough for your disgusting baby and I need to calm down. Do you know what I believe? Since the day you met Ryan, I believe you have been attempting to get rid of me. You desire him exclusively. You want to get rid of me entirely." "That's not true, Karen. I hope you can appreciate my point of view." The beads of sweat on my forehead were palpable. "Then demonstrate it. Modify the name." "You can't ask me to do that, Karen." In a manner I had never witnessed before. Her eyes were icy. Incorrect response. Her hand was on my chest before I realized it, and she gave me a forceful shove, which caused me to lose my equilibrium and begin to tumble. I reached for nothing. My brain could only scream one thing, so my arms wrapped about my tummy and my hips smashed on the stairs. "Keep the infant safe." The wind left my body as soon as I struck the bottom, and I just lay there looking up at 40 expressionless faces. For a brief while I noticed Karen standing at the top with her arm outstretched. Satisfaction as though she accomplished her goal precisely. Then it disappeared, and she rushed down the steps in tears. God, oh God. She made a slip. I attempted to seize her. Someone made a 911 call. Ryan fell to his knees next to me after pushing through the throng. "Are you all right, baby? Are you able to move? Is the infant doing well?" Karen was immediately behind him, screaming that I couldn't handle it any longer and that she was afraid and trying to catch me. "Ryan." She pushed me. She gave me a shove. The sobbing ceased. Karen's attitude was that of a wounded animal as she looked at me. "Do you hear me, Ryan? Have you heard what she's saying about me?" Her voice became high-pitched and frantic as she seized his arm. "I'd never harm my grandchild." I attempted to apprehend her. "She's perplexed. She struck her head, Ryan. She is unsure of her own words." No one spoke. Ryan seemed to be seeing his entire world fall apart as he glanced between us. "Just give her some room, Mom. How in the world am I experiencing this?" She went to sit on the couch and sobbed. The ambulance arrived. Ryan held my hand the entire time he cycled behind me. He kept inquiring about my well-being and assuring me that everything would be all right, but his expression gave me the impression that he was unsure of which version of events to accept. I was connected up to monitors at the hospital, and after what seemed like an eternity, we received word that the baby was doing well. I started crying so much that I was having trouble breathing. Ryan also shed tears. Then he asked me what actually occurred up there. He kept mumbling, "Thank God." And I thought, okay, now he believes me. Now he sees what his mom really is. I repeated it to him. My stomach began to drop as he became silent for a considerable amount of time. The name made her angry. "She wouldn't harm you physically, but I am aware of that. It's likely that you lost your balance." She pushed me after placing her hand on my chest. "Ryan." Squeezing my hand, he seemed to be attempting to reassure me despite my delusions. "You just experienced a horrible event, and you're worn out. Perhaps her reaching for you was transformed into something else by your head." His eyes showed it to me. This had to be untrue for him. He needed his mother to remain the person he believed her to be. I was also quite exhausted. Our daughter's heartbeat filled the room, my hip ached, and the monitors continued to beep. And all I wanted was for it to end. I responded by saying, maybe it happened fast. Maybe I wasn't totally sure what I felt. Ryan kissed my forehead and his entire body relaxed. Let's concentrate on the baby's well-being. I didn't have the strength to make him see something he was trying to ignore, so I let him believe it. Her palm flat against my chest, the half-second of nothing beneath my feet, I repeatedly replayed as I lay awake in the hospital bed that night with my hand on my stomach. I was aware of how I felt and that Karen was at home at the moment, phoning each member of the family and practicing her version until it sounded like the real thing. The plot would change to something I couldn't recognize by dawn. Before her falsehood became the only thing people remembered, I had about 10 hours. Karen's version had already gained traction by the following morning. I received 15 text messages from folks I had only met once or twice when I woke up. After my fall, Ryan's aunt wanted to know if I was feeling better. His relative expressed her hope that I was receiving assistance after learning that I had been experiencing emotional difficulties. According to a different cousin, Karen called her at midnight and sobbed, expressing her concern for me and the baby. I'm not concerned that she shoved me. As if I were the issue, they were worried about me. I needed to hear Karen's exact words, so I called Ryan's aunt. She's just so concerned about you, honey. That poor woman was crying on the phone and said she didn't know what she'd done wrong. She told me, "You've been hormonal and erratic this whole pregnancy." She claimed that Ryan has been battling your mood swings for months and that she has been making an effort to help him. And then to be charged with a terrible crime in her own house. She gave a little tisk. "Do you think you're stable enough to be a mother?" she said. "Sweetheart, she's not attempting to be mean. For that infant she is truly afraid." I was unable to feel my hands. She expressed her fear for my child. "She's just worried. All of us are. You know, asking for aid is never a sign of weakness." After hanging up, I contacted my sister Olivia right away and started talking endlessly. When I was done, she remarked sharply, "Listen, Emma. You will have to co-parent with that woman for 18 years if you don't get Ryan's head out of his ass before this baby is born. Take screenshots of every text and document every dialogue. This will only get worse." How worse could this possibly get? I didn't know just how worse it could get, was my immediate thought. That evening I was prepared when Ryan arrived home. "We must discuss what your mother is saying to others." With a groan, he put his keys down. "I spoke with her earlier today. All of this is definitely hurting her. In fact, my jaw dropped. Ryan, she's hurt. I'm mentally disturbed, and she's telling your whole family about it. She expressed her concern that I'm unfit to be a mother to your aunt." She did not say that. "She simply worries about you and the stress you've been experiencing." "What did she say to you specifically?" His entire face softened as he took a seat across from me. He was falling for her. She described her early years to me. When she was 6 years old, her mother left her. She simply left a message and never returned. She grew up believing that no one cared about her and that she was invisible. After having me, Mom at last felt like she mattered and that she existed. His eyes were filled with sadness as he gazed at me. I wanted to scream because I could see where this was leading. He reached for my hand and added, "Naming the baby Karen would have meant she finally mattered enough to be remembered. She claimed that ever since we became engaged, you have been attempting to force her out of the family and have never respected her position. Did she mention anything about the push? She promised never to harm you. That you are aware that's not a suitable response. She claimed that when you began to tumble, she reached for you. She claimed to have been thinking about it constantly and to find it incomprehensible that anyone could believe she would ever harm her own grandchild." I withdrew my hand from his. She never once mentioned what she had actually done to me, instead spending the entire session sobbing about her early years. She discussed it. "I didn't do it," she said. "You also think she's real. I think she loved her son, had a horrible upbringing, and erred in her response to the name issue. However, I don't think she shoved you. That is unbelievable. Everything I know about my mother is false if I think that. It was there. The reality beneath it all. Because he would be broken if he believed me, he was unable to trust me. Karen was aware of that. For 30 years, she had made herself the center of his universe. The mother who sacrificed all for her son. The child who was abandoned. She wasn't merely rejecting the shove. Without shattering his entire foundation, she was preventing Ryan from seeing the push. I'm mentally unfit to be a mother, she's telling your family. She's simply afraid. She believes that you will take me away from her. The heir walked out of the room. You're standing up for the woman who nearly took our daughter away. He got to his feet and took his keys off the counter. Tonight I can't do this. Karen had committed a mistake. But she was also planning. She assumed that I would ignore this and maintain harmony. She was unaware that as I reached the bottom of those stairs, I underwent a transformation. She was no longer in contact with the woman who had wed her son. She had a mother to contend with. I had had enough of waiting for someone to believe me. I would have to discover the truth on my own if I wanted it to be revealed. At her house, someone noticed something. There's always something to see. I was going to start making calls tomorrow. I began making calls the following morning. The only person who hadn't texted me to pretend to be worried or to inquire whether I was getting aid was Ryan's cousin Lily, who had attended the party. I assumed I could rely on her. She called me within 10 minutes after I messaged her to ask if we could talk. She said, "I was wondering when you'd reach out. Though I wasn't sure whether you wanted to hear from any family members at the moment, I still wanted to say something. If anyone witnessed what transpired at the stairs, please let me know." I could hear her breathing when she fell silent. She said, "I didn't see the push. It made me feel powerless. I had no idea how I was going to prevail in this conflict." Lily spoke next, but I caught a glimpse of her face just before you fell. Emma's expression. She paused. When you fell down, she didn't appear surprised. She appeared content, as if she had accomplished her goal. She was running down in tears when it vanished. Since I too saw that, I was genuinely relieved. I wasn't insane. Would you say that to Ryan? Bitterly, she laughed. He's not going to believe me. They never do. What are you saying? At a family cookout when I was 16, Karen told everyone that I had stolen $200 from her purse. She was so convincing, sobbing and trembling and screaming she couldn't believe her own niece would do this to her. But I didn't believe her. Lily's tone tightened. She was believed by my parents. They made me acquire a job to reimburse her for money I never took, and they grounded me for the entire summer. Lying about me now wouldn't matter to her if she had lied about Lily when she was 16. I think she still thinks I took it. Lily let out a deep sigh. After she makes up her mind that something happened, it becomes real to her. It doesn't matter what really happened. That someone like her was my mother-in-law and the grandma of my future daughter made me feel ill. I showed Ryan everything when he got home. Lily's text regarding Karen's facial expression, the money narrative, and the warning about her delusion. His expression altered in a way I had never seen before after he read it twice. Shaken, not defensive, nor offering justifications. He sat there looking at his phone as if it were the first time he had ever seen his mother. All I felt was fear, even though I wanted to feel like I had won something. This was not going to end with Karen sobbing over the phone to family members if Lily was correct about the pattern. The situation was only going to worsen. My phone rang 3 days later, and I saw Karen's name. I have no idea why I responded. Perhaps I genuinely believed she would offer an apology. Perhaps I simply didn't want to give her another excuse to label me challenging. "I know you've been talking to Lily," she continued, eschewing the politeness entirely. I clenched my jaw and said, "I know you're digging around trying to turn my own family against me. I'm just trying to get people to see the truth." She laughed. "The truth is that you fell down the stairs and decided to blame me because you've never liked me. You're trying to steal my son from me, and I won't let that happen." I can describe the symptoms of postpartum depression, Emma, and I know exactly what CPS looks for when they receive a call about an unstable new mother. Her voice then became dark and cold. I was frozen in place. "Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. You want to keep playing this game? Keep asking questions." I could hear the glee on her face as she said, "I'll call every agency. Keep turning people against me. And I will make sure you never have a moment alone with that baby. I'll speak with each physician. I'll ensure that everyone is aware of your unpredictable and suspicious behavior." She murmured, "I've already heard from Ryan about your mood swings, your crying, and your compulsive worrying." She laughed patronizingly. "Who do you think he's going to believe, sweetheart? His mother who has loved him for 30 years, or the woman who accused her of trying to harm her grandchild?" My hands were shaking, but I didn't back down. "Listen to me, Karen. If you ever threaten me or my daughter again, I'll make sure Ryan hears every word you just said." She had actually said it aloud, threatening to call CPS and take my baby, and she did it over the phone because she knew I couldn't prove it. No witnesses, no recording, just her word against mine as usual. And if she was already considering CPS, she had most likely already begun setting the foundation. She hung up, and the room fell silent. 3 weeks went by with nothing. No calls, no texts, no Karen showing up at my door with a new threat wrapped in a smile. And while the silence should have been a relief, it only made things worse. The question wasn't whether Karen was coming for my baby, but rather how much of a head start she already had. And that thought scared me. Every creak in the house made me cringe, but I tried to concentrate on getting ready for the baby by washing the tiny clothes and folding them into the dresser we'd painted pink, setting up the crib and hanging the little mobile with the stars and moons that played a lullaby when you wound it up. I would always find myself at the window whenever a car slowed down outside. Ryan claimed that perhaps his mother was finally reflecting on what she had done, but I could see him constantly checking his phone, waiting for something he wouldn't acknowledge he was waiting for. Olivia made sure that only my side of the family attended my baby shower, not Ryan's. Olivia caught me staring and squeezed my hand, telling me that everything would be fine. I tried to smile, but my face wouldn't let me because I knew that this wasn't over. I kept watching the door the entire time, expecting Karen to enter with that serene smile which indicates that she's about to blow up. I was at my OB appointment 4 weeks later, and something felt strange from the moment I walked in. The receptionist, who usually smiled and asked how I was feeling, hardly looked at me. She simply checked me in and told me to wait without making eye contact. I sat in the waiting room with my hand on my belly, trying to figure out what had changed. Perhaps she was having a bad day. She doesn't forgive. She doesn't forget. She just waits. My stomach was in knots by the time they called my name, and it had nothing to do with the baby. The appointment itself went well. The baby was healthy, and the heartbeat was strong. However, I caught one of the nurses glancing at me from behind the desk and turning away when I caught her. Perhaps I was being overly suspicious. I had 3 or 4 weeks until my due date, but after we were done, my doctor asked if she could talk to me in private for a little while. She closed the door and sat down across from me with a cautious expression on her face, saying, "I need to tell you something, and I want you to stay calm." My entire body went cold. We've had multiple calls over the past 3 weeks from someone posing as a worried family member, asking about your mental health history, whether you've displayed signs of instability or paranoia during your pregnancy, and whether you've had any psychiatric episodes. Is there something wrong with the baby? No, the baby is perfect. This is about something else. She paused as if she was carefully choosing her words. I had to put a password on my file because I couldn't breathe for a moment. What did you tell them? Nothing. We don't give out patient information to anyone, but I wanted you to know because the calls have been persistent and specific. Whoever this is seems to be trying to build some sort of case. I knew exactly who it was. I didn't even need to guess. I was going to say the same thing, and I'm also recording these calls in your chart in case you need a record later. My doctor nodded, and I thanked her before leaving that office with my hands shaking. Karen wasn't just talking anymore. She was taking action. No information goes to anyone, including family, without that password. I got a strange call this morning from someone claiming to be a friend of yours. They asked if you'd seemed erratic or unstable at work lately. They mentioned you were pregnant and suggested someone check on you. My jaw clenched. Did they leave a name? No. 3 days later, my boss called me into her office looking confused and a little uneasy. I told her it was a family matter and I was taking care of it, and she nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. They said they wanted to remain anonymous because they didn't want to upset you, but they were adamant that I should be on the lookout for warning signs. She only needed to sow seeds, get people to ask questions, and leave a trail of worried calls, so that if anyone looked into it later, they would discover a pattern of people expressing concern about my mental health. I called Olivia on my way home and told her everything. She didn't need anyone to believe her completely. She remained silent for a while before revealing that she had been doing some research and that she had contacted Ryan's aunt, who had inquired about my well-being following my fall, and that Karen had been phoning her weekly to weep about you, claiming that you had been experiencing psychotic episodes, and that she was afraid for her grandchild. Since I couldn't drive and hear this at the same time, I pulled over. Olivia added, "If something happens," I sat there in my parked car staring at nothing. Karen wasn't just trying to make me look crazy, she was recruiting people, getting witnesses lined up for whatever she was planning. "If something happens," she said, asking the aunt if she would be willing to be a character witness. I sat Ryan down when he got home and told him everything. The calls to my doctor, the calls to my workplace, and what his aunt told Olivia. As I spoke, I noticed a shift in his expression. First one of bewilderment, then one of disbelief, and finally, what I had never seen in him before. Fear. "She's trying to take the baby," he said quietly. He took out his phone and called her, and I watched him put it on speaker. She answered on the second ring, all warm and lovely. "Hello, honey. I've missed your voice." "Mom, have you been calling Emma's doctor?" Silence. A long one. Then her voice came back different. "Careful. You know your wife hasn't been stable, and you've told me yourself how emotional and paranoid she's been." Ryan hung up, and as he sat there staring at his phone with a pale face, I realized what had happened. Ryan had been venting to his mother as usual, telling her that I was tired, emotional, and worried about the birth, all of the usual pregnancy stuff. That night, Ryan went to check the mail and returned with a single envelope from his mother, which he handed to me and opened, revealing a piece of paper with neat handwriting and blue ink. Karen had taken every word and turned it into ammunition, but she didn't call back or text, which I almost wished she would have done because the silence was worse. It said, "All you had to do was name her after me," with a tiny rightward slant. "Enjoy these final weeks together." After reading it 3 times, my hand began to shake so violently that the paper rattled. Ryan grabbed it from me and read it, and I saw his face become white. We didn't speak for a while, and I had trouble falling asleep that night. Karen had come up to our house, placed that envelope in our mailbox with her own hands, and while we were inside, going about our lives, she was right there, close enough to touch our door, no longer hiding. I just lay there with my hand on my belly, feeling my baby's kick, and thinking about that note. I went into labor at 38 weeks on a Friday morning, and my water broke in the kitchen while I was making toast. For a moment, I just stood there staring at the puddle on the floor, thinking, this is it. Karen had made it clear that she wouldn't miss the birth, and she wanted me to know that she could reach me whenever she wanted. The birth was 2 weeks away, maybe less. When we arrived at the hospital, Ryan reminded the nurses that his mother, Karen, was not permitted entry under any circumstances before I could. If she showed up, you should call security. Don't speak to her. Don't let her speak to anyone, and simply get her out. Ryan drove me there, exceeding the speed limit by 15 miles per hour the entire way. He turned to me and took my face in his hands, saying, "She's not getting anywhere near you, I promise." The nurse looked a little surprised by his tone, but he nodded and took a note. I felt like I had been supported throughout this entire ordeal. After his mom left the note, he completely changed his mind and told himself that his mother was a cruel person. I would squeeze Ryan's fingers until I could feel his bones grinding together, and he never once complained as I held his hand through contractions that felt like my entire body was being torn apart from the inside, coming in waves that made it impossible to think about anything else. I was 6 hours into labor. Ryan's head snapped toward the door. "No, no, no, no." The yelling grew louder. He continued to tell me that I was doing great and that our Sophia was almost here. At first I couldn't hear the words, but I recognized the voice from somewhere down the hall. Before I could stop Ryan, he was out the door, and I heard his voice blending with Karen's as she screamed about her rights, about her grandbaby, and that we were keeping her away from her own family. Another contraction struck, and all I could do was hold on to the bed rails and try to breathe. "You need to leave now." "Ryan, honey, I'm just worried about the baby. You know she's not stable. You've told me yourself." I said, "Leave. I'm your mother. I have every right to be here when my grandson is born. You have no rights." Hers was loud and frantic, while his was low and hard. "When you shoved my pregnant wife down the stairs, you lost them. I didn't shove her, she fell. Why won't anyone believe me? I've only loved this family, and now I'm being treated like a criminal. You called her doctor, her job, and CPS, and you left a note in our mailbox telling her to enjoy her final weeks with our child. I gave up my entire life for you, Ryan, and this is how you repay me. By picking her over your own mother. Yes, I'm picking her. I'm picking my wife and my daughter, and I'm telling you right now. If you don't leave this hospital, I'll call the police myself. You're not a worried grandmother, you're a stalker. How dare you talk to me like that after everything I've given up for you?" The nurse returned, looking shaken, and said, "Ma'am, your husband is handling it, but she's asking to speak to a social worker. She's telling people you've threatened to hurt yourself." I actually laughed, despite the fact that I was having another contraction. Of course she is. 25 minutes later, A woman in a blazer entered and identified herself at 6 months pregnant. My mother-in-law pushed me down the stairs because I chose my daughter's name. Change it, she yelled. That's when I cut her off forever. I refused to give my child my mother-in-law's name, so she pushed me down the stairs. My mother-in-law Karen approached me about baby names while I was 6 months pregnant and standing at the top of her stairs. Will you now reveal the name you have chosen for my granddaughter? Or must I continue to speculate? She had been making small remarks like this all night, and I continued to sidestep her since I knew she wouldn't appreciate my response. After my grandmother, who reared me throughout my parents' split, my spouse Ryan and I had previously chosen Sophia. There was no way out of informing her now. We're going to call her Sophia. As if the term physically repulsed her, she repeated it back to me. Not Karen, but Sophia. For me, the name is everything. Ryan was in my arms for 8 months. She interrupted me. After his father left, I reared him alone. I sacrificed all for that boy. And you're not even able to give me this one item. Karen, it's not personal. It's the name of my granny. There was nothing humorous about Karen's laughter. Your grandmother. The woman who made your husband is more important than some woman I've never known. I did not intend that. I stumbled out. What do you mean then? Because it seems like you're saying that I'm unimportant. You don't value the sacrifices of the past 30 years. The volume of her voice was increasing, and I erred by adding, let's talk about this later when you've calmed down. She moved closer, and I retreated, only to find the stairs behind me. Calm down? You're standing in my house telling me my name isn't good enough for your disgusting baby and I need to calm down. Do you know what I believe? Since the day you met Ryan, I believe you have been attempting to get rid of me. You desire him exclusively. You want to get rid of me entirely. That's not true, Karen. I hope you can appreciate my point of view. The beads of sweat on my forehead were palpable. Then demonstrate it. Modify the name. You can't ask me to do that, Karen. In a manner I had never witnessed before. Her eyes were icy. Incorrect response. Her hand was on my chest before I realized it, and she gave me a forceful shove, which caused me to lose my equilibrium and begin to tumble. I reached for nothing. My brain could only scream one thing, so my arms wrapped